I'm Cody Matushik.
I'm Rod Monte.
And we are the movie reviewers. Today we're going to be talking about Quantum of Solace, which is a James Bond film. Rodney, what year did it come out in?
Well, this movie, when it came out, it was around 2008. It was several years after Casino at this point. What was interesting about this movie is that it was held back repeatedly because of script rewrites, script problems. There was a writer's strike. It was a mess, and so there were questions about when and if this movie was ever going to come out.
Yes, and if I remember right, they actually said that Casino Royale might be the last James Bond because they were having so many problems. They were so over budget at one point with this that they were just about ready to say, we're done with Bond for this time.
I mean, I think there were rumors of that, but I mean, there's no way. You have Sony behind it. The Casino Royale had set up a fever dream. Bond, the reinterest in Bond. I mean, we're going to talk about Casino, but the interest in Bond was at a fever pitch coming into this one because they had pulled off what a lot of people did not think was possible, producing a great Bond in the 21st century. So they definitely were going to do this one. The question is, could they cover its cost, or could they dispel the cost between themselves and Sony, and make enough money? Because everybody believed this was going to make money, and it did make money. It did make back its money, and it made a small profit. So, it was a $230 budget. It made close to $600 million, so it made just about its budget, maybe a little on the plus side, but there was no question people wanted a new Bond. There was certainly excitement about what was going to come next, particularly after Casino. And
I'm curious to see, what did you think of this theme song by Jack White?
Well, Jack White, let's start first with Jack White. Who's Jack White? Let's talk about who he is first. I mean, when you talk about Jack White, who is he, right?
Well, he was the leader and writer for the White Stripes.
And, he'd done some really fine music, with the White Stripes.
Yes.
With his sister. What was the big one? Seven Something Army? What was it called? You know what I'm talking about?
7-Man Army?
Yeah, I think that might be it. Yeah, with Jack White, was it like I think it was, Seven Nation Army.
Seven Nation
Army, which was a huge hit. And that is actually pretty good. The music video was cool. It was cool. And so I think they saw him as a potentially interesting writer. He was very, he's very modern, and he could bring, I think they were hoping for another Chris Cornell kind of hit.
Right.
I think they felt that he fell into that wheelhouse. And when he collaborated with Alicia Keys, it was like, boom, this was going to be a mega hit. Two different styles, but they could both bring something to the table.
Right.
But what they ended up producing and what ended up coming out was unfortunately a very lackluster song because the lyrics were, I think, poor. I mean, let's be honest. I think the lyrics were poor. I think that it uses very interesting but odd electronic sounds, There's a lot of reverb.
At that time, Jack White just broke up with the White Stripes.
Yeah, I know.
And so he said, you know what? I was the leader of this band. I know what's best for music. So,
well, I think that was the thing. I think he saw this song as the coming out for himself as his big single. And it really, unfortunately, and it was unfortunate, it really felt flat.
Because, throughout his whole career, he's experimented with different sounds.
He has.
But he chose a sound that does not match Bond.
It doesn't match Bond. Reverb, it seems like a good idea on the surface. Reverb was revolutionary when it was being introduced into Bond music originally back in the 1960s. He wanted to recapture that because reverb wasn't a thing in a lot of Bond songs. You didn't have that. So he was trying to bring back what he thought was, I think, an old style into a new century. But it simply didn't work. And like I said, the lyrics were uninspiring. I mean, it's not strong lyrics. And you've got Alicia Keys there who could do soulful music. I don't think she can write worth a lick, but she can be a very soulful, great pianist, and I felt that she was completely misused in terms of her vocal talents.
Yeah, she was basically just a backup singer.
No, she was. She
Jack
was a
White.
glorified backup singer. I don't care for the pace. I listen to the song still because I'm a huge Bond fan, so I still will listen to almost any Bond song.
Well, I know we both listen to Bond music nonstop, basically.
It's good stuff. I do think that the intro images help. I'm not saying they're strong, but for me they do help for the song to improve it. Sometimes the intro images in the Bond movie can actually save it, and in this case I won't say it saves it, but it does improve it. So
right.
I'll say that. It's a rough song. It's not inspiring, and there's just not. And the one thing it doesn't have, and one of the original producers, you remember, one of the original producers, of the Bonds, had once used a phrase that was kind of interesting.
Was it Albert Broccoli?
No, it was Harry Saltzman. Actually.
Okay.
Harry Saltzman, because Albert Broccoli really is. He's very creative, but he was very much the meat and potatoes mechanics man of the Bonds.
Right.
Where the Barnum and Bailey a little bit was Harry Saltzman.
Oh yeah.
And when we get into the earlier Bonds, we'll talk about these two incredible producers I do think they each added something.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That still exists in the Bonds. And Harry Saltzman, who is kind of a forgotten producer, he was a prolific producer back in the 50s and 60s. He was actually at a time more successful. But I digress. He said something. He said he had a phrase about and I'm not gonna quote it exactly, but he said what do you got in the washing machine? In other words, you would take two objects that seemingly have no connection, you put them together, and there was a hook. And that's a big thing about Bond movies. You got to find the hook, and you see a lot of that today in a lot of movies. Is the hook? The MI, the Mission Impossible series, they have a hook.
Yep.
The Fast and Furious movies, they have a hook, and the Bonds have a hook. Everything has a hook, and the thing missing in this song is the hook.
Right.
There's got to be something where you get something out of it that you can't wait for them to get back to that reprise, that moment in the song, that building up of the excitement. It does try, to its credit.
Right.
It doesn't quite make it. So.
And how much of Casino Royale are we going to have to spoil to discuss this?
I think we would say there are probably like mild spoilers, okay? But, Bond wins. Does that...
Yeah.
I don't... Because I really don't think there's anything really... Unfortunately, and that's
because
kind of
there's a carryover storyline from Casino Royale.
Is it, though? Because think about it. When is it referenced again? Spectre doesn't reference it. Spectre, even its images, doesn't reference Quantum. It goes right to Casino in its images.
Skyfall does reference it.
Skyfall doesn't reference Quantum itself. It references her betrayal.
Right.
But you get that from you get that from Casino.
Right.
You don't need to see Quantum to see Skyfall or Spectre.
Right.
I think, and that's more, I think, a product of the fact that it didn't reach the audience, and it didn't hit the audience in a way that was expected to. So I would say there are going to be mild spoilers, but nothing earth-shattering, okay? Bond beats the bad guy, okay? Do you want to talk about the plot, I guess?
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, in this one, it's kind of rough. Basically, Bond is going after someone who's buying up a lot of resources in Bolivia because he realizes, wait, this guy's up to something, so I better follow him and figure out what's going on so I can shoot him.
The character is Dominic Green. That's the main baddie, and he has a connection to Bond's lost love, Vesper, and so following a kind of a breadcrumb trail, it ends up being about a scheme about what you think is about oil, but actually ends up being about water and about monopolizing water through this company called Quantum, but is actually a front for the organization known as
Spectre,
even though that is not made apparent in one of the many weaknesses in this script. God is not made exactly.
And actually, if I remember right, the reference was a card that Bond found.
Something like that. Yeah, I don't even remember the reference.
Because I remember seeing the image of Spectre with the tentacles reaching out.
Is there in that?
I believe there is. It was like a business card that he found.
Okay, I mean so that's basically the plot. It takes place predominantly in South America, but there's certainly elements in London and other things. Bond is also violating M's orders because she seems like he's gone kind of rogue, going after the people who are responsible for Vesper Lynn, who was the woman in the previous Bond movie called Casino Royale.
Is it me, or did Daniel Craig just go rogue for his entire run of Bond?
No, he doesn't. I mean, because Skyfall doesn't go rogue, really, until the last 20 minutes.
Right.
So it's not really until the last 20 minutes. And Spectre, he doesn't go rogue.
Well, technically he is, because he's no longer a agent.
No, they haven't. They just remember he doesn't. He technically doesn't even really know that. I mean,
right,
because he was on a mission.
Right.
When that whole thing went through.
The whole takeover.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
But anyway, that's the basic plot of the story, guys. It's not an inspiring story, like I said. Writer's strike. But anyway, so that's it for that.
But good news is they didn't fire the director.
Is that good news?
Well, I'm just thinking of everything that happened with what was it, Spectre? Or no?
Oh, what you mean?
Where they said, well, we're bringing in this director, and they went, well, we're not using your idea, so we're getting rid of you. We're bringing in...
That's nothing new. I mean, they did in Spectre, they did that with Danny Boyle. That was Danny Boyle in Spectre, and he had his own view of Bond, and we don't know what that was. It could have been great. It could have been a catastrophe. But again, that's not uncommon. Producers, I mean, because they were in talks. They were getting a deal in principle, but they ultimately broke up over creative differences, and that happens all the time. That's a very common thing. And quite frankly, the Bond producers have a really good relationship generally with their directors. I mean, they're actually known as being probably some of the best producers working with directors. And you don't believe me, go watch Kathleen Kennedy for 5 minutes as she changes directors.
Yep.
But I mean, what do we think about really what the quality of this movie as a Bond movie? First as a Bond movie, then as a movie, I guess.
Right. As a movie, honestly, I was pretty bored. Like, with all the subterfuge and betrayal and lies with this whole monopoly, I was expecting it to be more riveting, edge of your seat stuff, cloak and dagger, and it really wasn't. Everything was done out in the open, and Mr. Green just lied to everyone.
Well, I mean, he kind of has to, because I mean that because he's trying to basically hoodwink the Bolivian government.
Yes, he is
giving him what they think is worthless land.
Yep.
So I mean, there is that aspect to it, and he's using a corrupt a general.
Yep.
Who's helping him to orchestrate this whole takeover of this land and monopolize this water supply in South America, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, well, what are the strengths of the movie then? What would you say the strengths of the movie are?
Honestly, there's not many. I'd say Daniel Craig is one of the strengths.
Well, I mean, for me, there are a few strengths. I mean, it's still a Bond movie. And yes, it's a lesser Bond movie. I won't lie to you. It's a lesser Bond movie, but there are a few strengths. For one thing, I think the action scenes are still solid. They're not as spectacular. They are a little too routine. Which is
I could not stand the car scenes.
The car scenes?
With Bond driving the Ford Explorer in the desert.
Oh, yeah, that didn't bother me.
It bothered me.
It was just, again, it was uninspiring.
Yes.
Which is the biggest problem.
Because Bond would not drive Ford.
Yeah, I know. That's a big thing. Bond fans have talked about this. That the Ford Explorer is a travesty. Whatever. If he can drive a Lotus Esprit, okay, which is a car that is like the most 80s car in the world.
Yep.
Okay, I'm not gonna worry about him with the Ford Explorer. But I think there are a few strengths. Daniel Craig once again does nothing by half measures.
Nope.
He gives a great performance, okay? Mr. White, who returns from Casino Royale, is in it. He gives a terrific performance. There is one scene in this movie. If this movie had been just like this one scene, we would be losing our minds about this movie. And that is the Tosca scene. That is the scene at the opera, the outdoor opera scene. Yep. That is fantastic. It is tight. It is taut with tension. There's tension there. It's fraught with tension. It's really great moment, and there's that witty little line that Mr. White says at the end of that scene, which I won't say, but it's a great scene. So I wish for more of that tension, that excitement, that fear, that fear. I mean, there's so much to go on there in that moment.
Oh yeah, I agree with you. If it was all like that scene,
right? I mean,
but unfortunately, this movie was really bogged down with poor dialogue.
It's weak dialogue, but it's also very. I have to say these things to get to the next plot point.
Yep.
There's a lot of just routine by the numbers. We need this scene so we can have the next plot point, and we have to get to the next location. You know,
was it just me, or for Bond, wasn't there a lot of monologues of them just rambling?
I wouldn't say that the monologues were long. I would say there's a lot of small ones, if that makes sense. There's a lot of them. The problem is, monologues, I actually don't mind. I
don't mind them if they're
Bonds
important.
have long monologues all the time. They were the king of monologuing. If we go back to like
Dr. No.
Incredibles.
Oh yeah,
the Incredibles. The villain monologuing.
Yep.
The king and queen of monologuing is definitely the James Bond movies, but you can be completely riveted to that. Like you said, Dr. No.
Goldfinger.
Go back to Red Grant.
Yep.
From Russia with Love.
Yep.
You mentioned Goldfinger. There's more we could talk about, in Octopussy. That's another one. I think has some great stuff.
But honestly, all the monologues in this felt useless.
Because they were about plot. They weren't there to get... Good monologues in Bond should be about character.
Yes.
Like, it should make you interested. Even if you don't fear the character, they should make you... You're not going to fear Goldfinger by the end of his monologue, but you are riveted.
Right.
To this guy and what he's doing. You want to see the next scene. You are desperate to see the next scene.
Yep.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Creepy and disturbed. When we talk about, what is it, Sylvia? His name, Sylvia? What's his name in Skyfall? Oh my goodness! I can't believe I can't remember his name. That's a shameful thing for me as a Bond fan. I can't believe I can't remember his name. Of course, he had a couple of them, but
yeah.
Raul Silva. That was it. Silva. Some of the greatest monologues of any villain ever.
Oh yeah.
So, the monologuing is fine, but it's there not for plot. It's there for character, and this was about plot, which was not strong. So therefore, who wants to hear what any of these people had to say? There is one funny line, though, I will say, about being a teacher. That was funny.
Yep.
At the hotel?
Yep.
That was a good line. Yep.
Like, another thing, that script, the dialogues, like, it felt clunky, any conversation she had with Bond. Like, I don't know if you felt that way.
Hey, what do you think about her motivation? Like, she has this personal drive and motivation in this plot. I mean,
it felt very paint by the numbers.
I thought it was a little bit better than that, to be honest with you, because I thought she sold it better. I thought, not because I didn't think it was paint by the numbers, I thought she did a good job in selling some of that, particularly at the end.
Right.
And that's where I think the strength of it was. I think where you could feel her anger and her fear.
Right.
And I really liked her performance there. I really did. I thought she was very good doing that. I don't think she gets enough to do in the early portion of the movie.
Not at all.
But I think at the end of the movie, that scene where she's fighting,
Yep. But that ending sequence is probably my second favorite scene out of the entire movie.
So there is some of that. Okay, well, what are the weaknesses then? I mean, you've already listed some of them. You've already started talking about some of them.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of the villain. The villain felt very powerless to me.
What do you mean?
Like, with Dr. No, we have all these... Any of the Bonds, usually there's some sinister villain that is a huge threat to Bond. This guy felt like, look at me, I'm average Joe. I have money.
Okay, he's a rich guy. Yeah, that's true. He's a rich guy. He is a rich guy.
But did you ever feel like he was a threat to Bond?
No, but then again, I mean, I don't know if that's always the standard I use for some of these characters because I'm not always looking for them to be a threat. I don't look at like the villain in The Spy Who Loved Me as a real threat to Bond per se. You know, I'm more about, are they an interesting character? Is it an interesting performance? And that's where I think it falls down.
Right.
You know, is that I don't really see I don't see any tension or relationship between the two characters really, where they're going off on each other or any of that. You know? I see a lot of the arrogant, foolish monologuing, even when he's getting his ass kicked, and that just puzzles the hell out of me.
Yep.
You know, I just think you look like an idiot at that point, and that was a real big problem. I also thought the actor, who's a good actor, he's actually done some very powerful, dramatic performances.
Right.
You know, I thought some of his acting choices were really strange. Like the voice he takes, he takes that weird, almost gnarled voice, choice, and I thought that was a very odd choice. And there's also, again, no hook. I mean, Le Chiffre has a hook.
Yep.
You know, I mean, you got to have a hook for these characters. There's no hook for this character. He was very much the average businessman, and you could slot anybody into it, and that was a shame.
Yep.
You know, I thought they really needed more. This was the same problem that we had with Spectre, is there was nothing to make that character, particularly as the head of Spectre, I think, interesting, and you could hook them on in terms of their performance or what their dialogue was or anything. I mean, that was a big problem. You know, to me. I mean, what else would you think are some of the weaknesses in this movie?
I wasn't a fan of the soundtrack throughout the movie.
Okay.
Because, you know, for some reason, you know, usually when a big scene happens, usually the James Bond theme plays.
Right.
This one only had it sporadically, and it was in odd places.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's like I didn't know why it was there. Because usually it's because Bond's about to show off or kick ass,
right? Or he just survived something,
or he just kicked ass and survived it. And there's nothing there. There's just nothing there. I don't know what the hell's going on.
Because
there.
I was expecting this wonderful soundtrack with it taking place in Bolivia.
Okay, I'm not sure I know a lot of Bolivian music, so
like the Peruvian sounds.
Okay.
I was expecting music like that. No, it's sporadic use of the James Bond theme. It's sporadic use of what sounds like a very hollow orchestra for some of the sound choices.
I was trying to look up. I'm not ignoring. I'm actually trying to find who the heck the composer is for this thing. And here's what surprises me: it's David Arnold.
That is surprising.
I'm actually very surprised, but I'm also surprised is that he actually, because this is his last Bond movie.
Oh, that
he did. Because after that, he wrote Skyfall.
Yep.
And they brought in different people.
Yep.
So that's actually somewhat surprising. I mean, so we're going to do the ratings now.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you want to talk about how the ratings work?
Yeah. In this show, we don't rate on a number scale. We go must see, should see if you're bored, or burn it in a dumpster.
Right. Exactly. Okay.
And Rodney, I'm curious, what would you rate this?
This is hard. This is a very hard one for me. I've gone back and forth a lot, guys, because I'm a very huge Bond fan. And I say huge Bond fan, meaning I have all the book. I've had all the books, technical manuals, soundtracks. I have posters to Bond. So it's a very. But I think even as a Bond fan, I can only rise it to the level of should see. I mean, and that's as best as I can do, because I think if you're interested in the Daniel Craig saga, which is really what we have here.
Yep.
In the Bonds now, we have a saga, and we can debate forever what that means in terms of Bond and whether that's a good idea or not, because this is the first Bond saga we've really ever had. I would say it's a should see if you're interested in the Bond saga of Daniel Craig's Bond, but outside of that, I don't know how hard I can recommend it outside of that.
Yeah, I'm with you too, because as you know, I've read the books also. Right. I've seen the movies. I couldn't even tell you how many times. And with this one, I'd say see if you're bored. Because for me, it's just not
I don't blame you, though.
It's not a strong enough Bond story.
Yeah, and I don't blame you for that, because I think if I weren't a huge Bond fan, that would be my rating too. But And I would say if you're a Bond fan, sure, watch it. But if you're not really a Bond fan, is this one you could kind of skip? Yeah, you really could kind of skip it. And it's hard for me to say that because I think all Bonds are worth watching. I will say that it's not a trashy movie. It is a well-made movie. There's clearly money behind it. It's just not as innovative, particularly coming from the high that is Casino Royale. Okay, so
I'm Cody Matushik.
I'm Rod Montag, and we are the Movie Reviewers.